Hello and welcome to Salute. I'm your host, Bob Peters, and my guest today is Master Deputy Sheriff Walter Wolf. And he wants to make sure I get that title right.
It's just Walter Wolf.
Walter Wolf.
Yes.
Walter, you've had a long career in law enforcement, and I met you at the pinning ceremony we did for Vietnam veterans, of which you are.
Yes, sir.
And you want to tell that little story you told people there about I'm going to get into the sheriff business, but I want to talk to you about you being in the Marines, and you did 2 tours, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little about yourself out of high school. Is that how it happened?
Well, I, like Sheriff Grinnell, who's been on your program in the past, I didn't really like high school that much. And back in the early 60s, it was a different time than what we're in today. And had some family issues with my parents. Not me, but they went through a divorce. So that affected myself and my siblings a little bit. But long story short, I quit high school in my junior year and went into the Marine Corps, which was probably one of the best things I could ever do as far as growing up.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I knew of a place called Vietnam, but I didn't know of a place called Vietnam. But I went to boot camp at Parris Island, and what an experience that was. I knew the first day I'd made a mistake, I thought.
Yeah, we all have those days when we
Yes,
first
sir.
went in, yeah?
Yes, sir. So anyway, I went through Parris Island and went through advanced infantry training at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And then I get orders to Westpac 3rd Marine Division that was actually in Vietnam at the time. So I spent a short period of time in advance that the Marines had to go through prior to going to Vietnam in California, advanced infantry training, more so than what Parris Island was in jungle warfare type training. So, but unbeknownst to me and unbeknownst to the Marine Corps, I'm only 17 years old. So I get into country in the middle part of September 1965, and the company commander calls me into his office and says, and I was a PFC at the time, he said, PFC Wolf, what are you doing here? I said, well, I was told to report. No, I don't mean report to my office. What are you doing here in Vietnam? I said, I have orders coming to Vietnam. He said, you're 17, correct? I said, yes, sir. He said, you shouldn't be in a war zone. He said, you're going to be 18 in a couple of weeks. Yes, sir. Well, we're not going to send you back, but you're not going to go out on any patrols or anything until, you're 18. Yes, sir. So the day I turned 18, they had me on a combat patrol as the point man. And new to combat, I'd been in Vietnam for 2 weeks roughly at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking a rice paddy dike ahead of the squad, and I'm looking down and seeing human excrement down in the waters there. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, I don't want to get in that stuff. And all of a sudden we come under fire. And I did the prettiest swan dive into that water with that human
It didn't matter after that,
you
right?
could do. But yes, sir, welcome to Vietnam. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because, the youngest person killed in Vietnam was a young African-American soldier. He was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he must obviously lied about his age to get
Yes,
in,
sir.
but
Yes, sir.
yeah.
So that was my first tour. I spent, I was with Foxtrot 29, 3rd Marine Division, and was on many of the big operations we had over there. Operation Hastings was one of the big ones. I promoted up to Lance Corporal and completed my tour, my first tour in Vietnam, and was sent back to the States. And then I was first sent to Quantico, Virginia, an officer's candidate school as a aid technician up there. And I was involved in helping them solve a case up there against a career officer. So I was promoted to corporal after that and sent to, I had some family problems. Again, my parents had got back together, and there was still some issues medical with my parents. So I got a hardship transfer from Quantico, Virginia to the Naval Air Station at Cecil Field, Florida, which is a Marine detachment there at the nuclear weapons depot. So I ended up getting a top secret clearance and was promoted to sergeant there. And I was going to re-enlist in the Marine Corps. I was going to make a career of it. And I was down to about 4 months left in the Marine Corps, and I got orders back to Vietnam. And I said, I don't know about this, because things were really heated up at that time.
This would be your third tour.
Second time then. This would be my second tour.
Oh, your second tour.
So they told me, well, you can turn your orders down as a sergeant, and they're probably not going to send you back, but you won't be able to re-enlist. I said, okay, no problem. I had some inklings about going into law enforcement. So I turned my orders down, and the captain called me and said, no, you've got combat experience, and they need NCOs with combat experience back over there, so, good luck.
Yeah.
So I ended up going back to Vietnam for my last, when the time I got back in country, I had 3.5 months left to do, and spent my last 3.5 months back in Vietnam, and I did get out, and took up a law enforcement career. So I started my law enforcement career in 1969.
And that was with the Florida Highway Patrol?
Well, no, sir. At that time, I wanted to go with the Florida Highway Patrol, and I did finish my high school education, and I started taking some college courses. But the Highway Patrol back in those days was very strict on several things, height and weight. And you had to weigh a certain weight, or they wouldn't even entertain the thought of you coming on board or going through the hiring process. So at that time, I couldn't get up to that weight no matter what I did. So I took a job with when I first got in the Marine Corps, I went to work at the Kennedy Space Center with Wackenhut in their patrol division. They had full police power on the Kennedy and the government agency, so I was a patrolman with them. At the same time, I was a reserve officer with the Oak Hill Police Department. Then, that was in January of '69 that I started that. August of '69, I was hired by the New Smyrna Beach Police Department, where I stayed for 3 years, and then I found a way to get on the Highway Patrol. And that's another story.
I got time.
All right. I still didn't weigh enough, but I was only a few pounds short. And I took all the testing, and I passed everything to go with the Highway Patrol. And the next step was to go to Tallahassee for the final physical. And that time you had to be a certain height and a certain weight. Mm-hmm. And I was about 2.5 pounds short, and they were very strict. I knew with that shortage that there's no way.
I got a feeling I know where this is going.
Well, I went out, and the only thing you were allowed to have on would have been your underwear, which was boxer shorts. Mm-hmm. And I bought some curtain weights and sewed them into my boxer shorts.
I knew it was going to be something like that.
I had close to 2 pounds of weight sewn into my shorts, and when I was weighed, I was 1/4 pound over the minimum weight. So I was hired by the Florida Highway Patrol.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yes, sir.
I've heard stories like that before. I have a friend of mine he's now with the Lord. He was in World War II, and he wanted to get on the flying status, and they wouldn't put him on flying status because he couldn't see out of one eye. So he volunteered to go clean out the offices and stuff, and he memorized the eye chart.
Oh, I've heard of that from others. Yes, sir. Yeah. So I spent 33 years at the Florida Highway Patrol, retiring as a captain, and was immediately hired by then Sheriff Chris Daniels, and into the position I'm in. And I work in what we call our community engagement unit now, which is community services. And it's been one of the most rewarding and best jobs I've had in my law enforcement career.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about some of the programs that you do. And I know you get around to communities, and if somebody wants to have you come and speak later on, you can give them a little heads up on how to get you there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When I was first hired, the position was quote-unquote crime watch coordinator. And it's kind of a funny story in itself, because when Chris called me in and said, you know, I've got a position for you, he'd had several that we were looking at, and I told him, number one, I don't want to go back into supervision. I've been a supervisor for 18 years. I said, I think I have an awful lot to offer, but I'm no threat to any of the prior employees or your current employees, rather. I just, you know, see if you can find me something that would, you know, fit the needs of the department and myself. So he called me in and says, I think I found something for you. He said, it's basically an 8 to 5 job, Monday through Friday, holidays and weekends off. And that was the first mistake, because it's never been an 8 to 5 job with holidays and weekends off. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, I'd like you to be my crime watch coordinator. I said, okay, what would I do? And he looked me square in the eye and said, well, quite frankly, I really don't know. So I said, well, we'll learn together, Chris. And it did. But I've branched off from that. I am still the crime watch coordinator. In other words, I go out to the different communities and help them set up their neighborhood watch, crime watch programs. And I also do public safety type talks. The big one I'm doing right now is the scams, frauds, and identity theft. I talk to school-aged children about bullying, gun safety. Who would have believed, 20 years ago we'd be talking to kids in school about gun safety?
Yeah.
It's a shame and sad, but it has to be done. So it's just some of the stuff I do. And then I bring the public up when I'm at these meetings on the different programs that we have in our agency that can benefit them. And a lot of people aren't aware of some of the stuff we do at the Sheriff's Department outside of, trying to catch the bad people.
Yeah. You know, I was talking to you and Peyton a little while ago about, I had been at a meeting with the Korean veterans, and they had a sheriff come in from Sumter County and talk about the elderly and some of those programs. And it was really, you got some really great programs, and I'd like you to tell our viewers about them.
Well, the one program when I first started that we had basically was called Senior Watch. And don't let the word senior fool you, because it's not just geared for seniors, but it's generally, we are a very high populated senior population in Lake County. And a lot of our seniors live alone. So with this program, and it doesn't necessarily mean they have to live alone, but what they do when they come into the program, they every day will call us to tell us that they're okay. And we have a very good staff of volunteers that will take these calls and check them off a list that they're okay. Mm-hmm. Now, if they have not called us and notified us they're going to be out of pocket for a period of time, we will start the process to find out what's going on. First of all, we'll try to call them back at a contact number. If we can't get a hold of them, we'll try a contact person if they furnish one for us to see if they can go physically check on that person. If we can't do any of those or get a hold of anybody, we will send either a deputy sheriff, a city police officer, or one of our citizens on patrol to physically check on them at their residence to make sure they're okay. We have saved lives with this program. And on the opposite end of that, if in fact maybe they should pass away, the quicker we can find a person, the easier it may be on the family or friends that may have to go into that residence. So it is a very worthwhile program. It doesn't cost anything, and it's kind of comical in some senses too. We've got a spin-off program on that, and that's our lockbox program, because if they don't call us, and if they've gone off on vacation or with family members somewhere else and we don't get that call and can't get a hold of them, we're going to break that door in when we get there to make sure that they're okay. Mm-hmm. So the sheriff got tired of replacing doors So we got the lockbox program now that they can put a key in a lockbox, and we've got the combination with our dispatch center. But it's just a very good program.
Yeah, I think that if I remember right, they put something on the refrigerator too, a list if the person has some medical issues or stuff.
That's our Vial of Life program.
And it was some
yes,
kind of program.
Yes,
yeah.
sir. That's a program that, and we have an office at the Lake Square Mall, just outside of Penny's, that if somebody would need a vial, it's an informational, it's nothing more than a large medicine capsule, and it's large enough to have a form that we have put together that the person would list their medical conditions and medicines they're taking. And then there's a decal on that vial, and then there's a similar decal that you would attach somewhere around an entryway door or something to for that either medical personnel or law enforcement or the fire department. If we respond to that residence and that person is either unresponsive or nobody knows what's going on that may live there with that person, if we see that sticker, we know that they have filled that information sheet out, put it back in the vial, and put it in their refrigerator. So we'll know to go to the refrigerator to retrieve that information, and at least the medical personnel will have an idea of what medicines they're taking and what ailments they have. And it's another one of our worthwhile programs.
Well, I'll tell you, I give you guys a lot of credit. You got a lot of great programs.
Well, and one of the better ones that we have started over the last several years, and it's been called a couple of different things, but right now it's called Safety Net. And it's a program that an individual would need to have a medical need to get into the program. And it's geared for individuals that may have Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, autistic children. We've got a couple of those in the program even. And we've partnered with LoJack. And what happens is the person is fitted with a tracking bracelet. And if they go reported missing to us, we currently have a 100% success rate in finding these individuals, usually within a half hour to an hour after us putting our resources in place, which is a benefit to every taxpayer in Lake County. Let alone it takes a huge strain off the family members also. But and some people say, well, how come it's a benefit to me if I don't need it or know of anybody on the program? Well, as a taxpayer, you're going to want us to, or as an individual that has a loved one missing, you're going to want us to do everything we can to find that person. And the quicker we can find them, the least resources we have to find them, the less the taxpayer's money we will have in a search.
Plus, you're not tied up on that. You can move to something else.
Yes, sir. Now, with this program, there is a cost involved in it, but Sheriff Grinnell feels so strongly about this program, and it's a benefit to us as far as manpower allocation and everything. We have found ways to offset that cost that none of the participants are having to pay for it, and we don't foresee that. We get donations from individuals. We'll gearmark or ask them to gearmark it for the Safety Net program. We get donations from the different clubs such as the Elks, Kiwanis, Lions, and then the Alzheimer's Association. So it's just a very, very good program.
I know my AMVETS Post donated.
Yes, sir, they did.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, they did. You know, it's just so beneficial. We've got another program, a scent program, that we can take samples of a person's DNA, excuse me, and we've got our bloodhounds that are trained in tracking these people down too. So we do an awful lot outside the scope of just what a person would think is the normal law enforcement function, which we do also.
Oh, yeah.
But those are some of the programs that we offer.
Yeah, you also have a helicopter that, in case you need it.
Yes, sir, and they have a tracking monitor in the helicopter, and that's what we would usually try to get up first, weather permitting. If not, we've got units that are handheld in some of our patrol cars that we can beacon in on that bracelet. Kind of a comical side note, we had a young lady, a real young girl with an autistic child down in the Claremont area a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And she went missing, and we found her, but then the mother called us and said that the bracelet is missing. We can't find the bracelet. She had cut the bracelet off of her wrist. There's a way you can take it off, but the girl had actually cut it off. So we sent one of our units down, and as he got out of the car and had a handheld unit, he started hitting a singles. And he walking around, he couldn't figure it out, because the mother thought that the bracelet was hidden somewhere in the house, and they were going to go in and try to find it in the house. And as he got out to the street, the single got very strong. Well, the girl had flushed it down the toilet, and it was in the sewer system. And those units cost about $600 a piece, so that was quite an expensive flush.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. The sheriff's thrift stores, you guys are involved with that?
Yes, sir. Well, that's the sheriff's, Florida Sheriff's Association usually does that. And it's goods that have been donated, and then...
yeah, I brought a lot of stuff down there.
And that money goes to the sheriff's youth ranches and so forth. So it's a very worthwhile program. They have one of the newer modern thrift stores is the one on 27.
Yeah, that's right down from me. That's
yes,
where
sir.
I go, yeah.
Yes, sir. So that's a very, very worthwhile program.
Tell me a little about the camps. Is it just for anybody, or is it for kids that may need a little guidance?
It's usually the kids that need guidance and so forth. I don't know the full mechanics of how they work. That's a little bit out of the scope of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of the big things the sheriffs throughout the state of Florida promote and have resources to help within that particular program. But it's one of the big programs of the sheriffs and the Florida Sheriff's Association.
In your 50 years in law enforcement, Peyton told me you started out with on Gunsmoke, I think it was.
Yeah, we had horses and buggies back in those days, according to the Sheriff Grinnell.
Yeah, but what it was? What's your favorite program to work with, or any particular great one memory that you that really puts a smile on your face?
There's been so many. Throughout my career, I did everything from being a traffic homicide investigator to doing internal affairs to being a district commander. But with all that being said, I think right now in the position I'm in, I actually enjoy coming to work. Mm-hmm. And that's why I keep doing this. And the Lake County Sheriff's Office or Department, it's not just because I work for this agency, but I have been around and worked with agencies throughout the state of Florida. And if the Lake County Sheriff's Office isn't the number one, they're in the top 2 or 3 in the state of Florida. How the people work, the employment, the people that work out there, and how they treat their citizens. And granted, you're going to have those individual times that you may have an issue. But we police ourselves very well in this agency. And in my job, I get to work with the public. That's solely what I do. And whether it's a meeting with an HOA board of directors or just a few people, or like I just recently had a huge meeting in a community up here in the Leesburg area where we had over 400 individuals at. And they were seniors, and I was told, when we got in there, you better make it quick because they'll fall asleep on you or they'll get up and leave. And I said, okay, we'll see. Well, 2 hours later, they were everyone had still there, and none the first one had left. And that particular meeting was on scam, frauds, and identity theft. And of course, nobody's immune from that. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the big ones I'm doing now.
So if I'm in the community, Hawthorne, I'm not going to mention Pembroke because I know you guys go there all the time. Mike has got you pretty well booked up there, but some of the other communities, Continental or what have you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me through our community services or community engagement section at the Lake Square Mall, or they can go on our website. They could call the Sheriff's Department itself and say, we would like to have somebody come out and talk to us about whatever it is they want to talk about. Now, if it's something like our senior watch, not our senior watch, but our one of the programs that like our Sheriff Citizens Academy, I don't oversee that program, and we've got a young lady, Linda Thompson, that does that, and that's another very worthwhile program that I think the people would enjoy. That's a 13-week course, 1 night a week. It's held at usually around the Tavares area because that's where the county seat is, but they have sort of branched out and started doing as much as they can out in the community if we have enough people for a program, to put on a program. And they get to learn all the aspects about the Sheriff's Department. As a taxpayer, they pay for everything we do and all the equipment we have. So it helps them to get a better understanding why when the sheriff asks for something or in his budget request, of why it's so helpful for us, for them to know what we're doing and what would be the direction that money may be going to.
Yeah. So they would contact you if, say, that somebody wants to be a crime watch in the community, you know, where you do that, or volunteers.
Our volunteer program is again through Linda, and we have our Citizens on Patrol that Ed Nathanson, who is a retired police chief from Lady Lake Police Department, oversees that particular program. And so I'm not going to say it would directly be me for some of the other programs, but again, my main focus is the Crime Watch, Neighborhood Watch program, and then some of the spin-offs of that is the safety talks as far as scam, frauds, and identity theft. But we've got other people that could do that too if I was not.
And it's the same web page and.
Yes, sir. Our main web page, and one thing I know the sheriff was here earlier to talk to y'all. But on our web page, something that I'm proud about that we have put into place a couple of years ago, and when we pay for this service where nobody would have to pay for it, is our crime report section on our main website. And that's where a person throughout Lake County can go in and put their address in, and they can see what crime has happened around them. It's not 100% accurate, but it's pretty accurate, and it's relatively up to date. There might be a couple of days time frame from when the crime was committed or whatever happened before it's actually posted in the site. And several of the local police departments participate in it also. The larger ones like Leesburg participates in it, Tavares, Mount Dora, Eustis, Claremont. So in those areas that are in the city limits, if somebody lived in the city of those particular cities, they could go into the same site on our webpage and get that information to see what's going on.
Walter, I'm afraid I'm running out of time, but once again, that webpage and on the computer, where do they go again?
Okay, they would go to www.lcso, Lake County Sheriff's Office.org. And when they get to that website, there'll be a section, there'll be a lot of stuff on our master website, but they're going to go to the one that says Stay Safe. And then they can come down to that, and there's several categories that they could tap on and bring up. The one that I would promote would be the one that says review crime or crimes in the local area, and or crime reports. And it's pretty easy to navigate through. The first time you do it, it can be a little bit scary, but and it will automatically divert to Tavares because that's the county seat. So once you put your address in, it will revert to wherever you're looking, or anywhere else you'd want to look in the county. And the one good part about that, Bob, is, and I should have mentioned it, is it automatically brings up where the sexual predator offenders live, and have a picture of them and a brief on them also of. So that's another good point of that particular site. Yeah.
Well, Walter, I'm out of time.
Okay.
I want to thank you for coming on the show. Welcome home, brother.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And sharing this information, this very important information. I'm glad you came on. It was good seeing you again.
Thank you.
And you keep up the good work.
Yes, sir.
50 years, you got another 50 to go. Join me in saying goodbye.
Okay.
To all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time. Now we